panelists, do you want to come on up? Please. Hi, everyone. I'm Kaylee Moore. I'm the head of communications at Bitcraft Esports Ventures. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. I'm going to go ahead and let our distinguished panelists go ahead and introduce themselves, about 30 seconds each. Quick format, we have 45 minutes of questions right now. Since this is Germany, we are going to start on time, and we are going to keep it on time. We'll then open it up to 15 minutes from questions from the audience, and then we have hour to an hour and a half of networking and drinks. So let's get started with Walter.
Thank you. My name is Wouter. I'm the CEO of Fnatic. Fnatic is a global competitive esports organization. I always have a bit of a hard time to describe ourselves because there's a fair bit of things that we do, what we'll talk about today as well. We have currently 10 competitive teams in our roster. We launched 3 new ones very recently. But we also have our own product line, Fnatic Gear, and obviously a lot of merchandising. And we also went into retail with our own bunker. So, we describe ourselves as an esports brand, but esports and competitive gaming is at the heart of what we're doing, and that's Fnatic.
Yeah, hi, my name is André. I work for Lagardère Sports, which is a global sports marketing agency. So basically we are sitting in Africa, Germany, Europe, USA, Asia, and we take care about marketing for traditional sports holders, which means that for here, instance in Germany, means we take care for big football clubs like Borussia Dortmund, Eintracht Frankfurt, about the marketing. So that means LED panels, jersey sponsors, also digital channels. And lately we made our way into esports because we believe that this is like one of the new sports we have in this world. And we're just figuring out our way and want to be part of the revolution.
Hi, my name is Hendrik. I'm working for Freaks for You Gaming. Already for 5 years now. I'm in charge of influencer management. Freaks for You Gaming is a marketing agency with focus on esports and gaming. We are already existing for a while now. We've got offices in Berlin, one in Serbia, one in Taiwan, and now one in California. So we're also pretty widespread. We have various different clients. We are working, for example, with Schalke, who's, I think, not with you guys.
As a competitor.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, exactly. We've got various different clients, and we're taking care on the one side of catering to those clients, creating solutions for them in a 360 way, like everything you want to have in esport and gaming, we can make it happen for you. On the other side, we're also creating our own content, so we're covering, for example, the League of Legends Championship Series in Germany and various other products in Counter-Strike and League of Legends and so on. So everything kind of Fnatic has teams in, we are broadcasting.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. So the topic tonight is esports, fad or the future of sports. Just to get a show of hands of who's in the audience, can you raise your hand if you are currently working in the esports industry right now? Okay, actually a pretty fair split. And how many of you here are interested in esports but not yet working in this market? Awesome. So we are going to kick off today with the topic that seems to be on everyone's mind, which is revenue. So the marketing research company Newzoo just released their latest report, I think last week, about the state of global esports. And one of their major focuses was revenue. They said that the average revenue per enthusiast will increase to about $3.64 this year, and it will grow to a little over $5 in 2020. While this is progress, this is significantly lower than what we're seeing with traditional sports, whereas the NBA, the average revenue per fan is about $15. So I want to ask, basically either of you, actually, let's focus with Walter for this. Is this a cause for concern? What products or strategies do you think have the best chance at increasing this revenue per user for esports?
Well, first of all, it's absolutely an opportunity and not a concern. I guess it's always hard to look at how you look at these figures and understanding what's incorporated in measuring these revenues. But when I speak for Fnatic ourselves, let's say the things that we're working on and the hurdles that we need to overcome. We have a big brand, lots of esports fans know us. Then they probably know that they can purchase a jersey and merchandise. But one of the things that we're working hard on is that we're telling that, hey, we also have the Fnatic gear, mice and headset, etc. And then there's the other part that, for example, we have a team. Our Dota team is in Kuala Lumpur, and Dota is a very popular esports title there as well, and we have lots of fans there. But typically, there in that region, it's hard to sell your products. It's hard to distribute. Also, there, like Europe, you're working with different languages, etc. So. It's a big opportunity actually, and for me saying it's like we can achieve the same revenue per fan as is in other sports as with esports, but we're rapidly catching up to build out the same infrastructure and building the same level of whether it be awareness and so marketing to give people access to the merchandising and the things they love to purchase. Another thing, typically what they say is like, hey, we don't have a stadium. And with our retail store, it's actually one way to provide, also in a physical environment, fans access and through experiences to spend money what they love spending money on. Definitely the ambition is to launch more of those stores across the globe. And sometimes said like, if we all connect that together, then we actually have a very big stadium just across the globe, like esports is. So again, for us, I just really see it as an opportunity, and I hope to catch up really soon, and that we give esports fans access to the things that they love to spend money on, and I think that's one of the things that what it comes down to.
Awesome, thank you. Go ahead, Andre.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I guess it's about structures, which, like, for instance, I guess basketball is mentioned in that news report. So you do have a lot of already established structures in established sports, obviously. So what the opportunities actually is that to establish these structures. So I think also there you just can't adapt existing structures from existing sports. You need to develop like new structures, and what kind of structures these are, we have to figure out together. So, but if we figure it out together, then it will raise. And still there, we talk about like the revenue per fan, which might include that we actually want to have like revenues from the fans. And I guess there's also an opportunity that esports has. We doesn't necessarily need to take that money from fans. We actually can get it from like sponsors. So, for instance, if you take basketball, I guess in the USA, you have to pay money to actually watch basketball in like premium TV, and you still have like advertisements. So there can you maybe create an opportunity that's actually, it gives you the actual content for free, and we will get the money for the content from like sponsors who are actually able to do good storytelling there, to create good advertising. Don't steal people's time with like 30-second spots like in TV. Rather tell stories like we do in influencer marketing, for instance.
Great, and Hendrik, can you share your views from a marketing standpoint?
Yeah. For me, in general, I think that when it comes to esports, it's a very global phenomenon. So it's something where everyone can participate into. However, it also lacks, to a certain extent, a level of identification. Because when you look into traditional sports, you've got a club which is within the region, so it has a very, like, the fans inside that region are very loyal. They buy a lot of products like merchandise and other things. So esports is rather something global where this level of identification isn't there yet, but I think we're heading towards that way. So we are opening up those regional budgets. So for example, when something like Overwatch with Blizzard is happening and they want to do focus more on the cities and focus more on something like those regional aspects, or when League of Legends is now narrowing down more and more also to national leagues, then we are also opening up new budget pots within those regions, and we can leverage those even more than before. I think also when it comes to our culture. I think when I'm thinking about esports, I associate it to something which is free for everyone, kind of. Like, you don't need to pay anything. You can access it. When I own or when I play League of Legends, I can watch this content. I can consume it. And in sports, in traditional sports, you have this paywall now. Like, as you mentioned before, people have to pay for it. And I think in esports, either we manage to get the culture or get the people so they expect that they have to pay for high quality content, like Red Eye mentioned a couple of days ago in an interview, that we have to expect that we gotta pay for good quality content in the future, or we come up with new revenue streams, like something like microtransactions for some things. I think there are already some moments like for skins and other like digital items you can buy during an event. Those new options, they don't exist in traditional sports. They open up new options in esports.
Great, thank you. So one of the things we've already touched on is the comparison between esports and traditional sports. And it feels like even so far in 2017, we've seen this crossover more than ever before, with teams like the 76ers or the Miami Heat purchasing teams, or talks about the NBA starting their own leagues. Andre, let's start with you. I know Lagardère is a traditional sports company, and you've just decided, I believe in the last month, to venture into esports with your partnership with Unicorns of Love. Can you talk about why you decided to jump in the scene, why now, and what value do you think you can provide?
Of course. So basically it's about like passion. So the story is actually that me and 4 of my colleagues slash friends, we basically raised up with that gaming industry like we all have. And we saw that the established industry, sports industry, advertising industry didn't get that already. I mean, we're still there, that they didn't get it already. So there lies the opportunity. And so we basically took that topic, made it our own, and made our way up within our company structures. And at that moment, we kind of also figured out what our benefit is, because the actual process to sell it to our company was that the process is we need to sell it to people who didn't grow up with it. That means we need to translate that language, that thing we see, into someone's language that didn't grow up with it. And I guess that's the biggest benefit we can do, because we're like a global agency. So we basically have like every brand you can imagine in our portfolio. So we could technically call them and say like, look here, esports is cool, buy it. But actually we need to translate that in a language that it's helpful for them. So we need to provide value. We need to put ourselves in the shoes from that company. And we need to figure out a way that works for both of us. So that should work for an esports team as well as for the brand itself. And then we take care about the partnerships. We grow these partnerships. We create new sponsorship products. We create new structures. We try to help like increase digital channels. So put out as much content as you can and learn from it, engage with your audience, that kind of stuff. So it's still like a long way to go, I think, because I believe that we are at a point now where everybody thinks like, we see these numbers you mentioned from Newzo, and everyone is like, so yeah, now the money comes in, I didn't have to do anything. I mean, it's still a lot of work, and we still need to do a lot about it, but I guess we're on the right track, and this journey is just getting started, and it's getting more and more interesting, but it's hard work for all of us.
Thank you. And Walter, from an organization perspective, how much do you see traditional sports helping the esports ecosystem? To what extent? And do you predict any negative consequences from this kind of involvement?
Also here, I mean, you could say like, I don't care. For us, in competition, like in game, we feel like doesn't matter who is again or whom we're competing with. The ambition is always the same. It's like, I'd like to win. I think it's a good thing. I think if you look forward, then maybe traditional sports and esports will just more merge together. We started to have a few conversations with football clubs. We're based in London, so there are a few football clubs there and in the UK, and they started to, explore esports. And every one of them had maybe a little different mindset or the reason why they started to look into this. But I guess more and more in those football boardrooms, they started to think like, what are we actually? You know, are we a football club? Are we like a sports brand? Are we, you know, a legacy? Are we, and who do we want to be in the future? And at some stage, stopped these conversations because it was clear that they all want to start their own teams. Until then, recently, we launched our FIFA team with AS Roma last week. And I think that's a nice example of how, you know, they reached out to us and we came together and where we're tapping into each other's expertise. So it is Roma's expertise in, you know, the level of performance management, what they do, how they build their brand, how they, you know, build their infrastructure, everything behind AS Roma is obviously very impressive. Was there last week, and you know, it's like facilities you can only dream of. And then it's in Rome and it's sunshine and so it's all good. But so I guess, you know, in the years to come, no doubt, I guess that whether it's in the games, but also in terms of how we see traditional sports clubs and brands rethinking themselves, but even ourselves, how we rethink ourselves, not every day, but every now and then, because you know, we're so used already to, we do a lot of PC gaming, and then recently we launched a team in Vainglory, which is mobile-based gaming, and I had a few people who were also saying, that's awkward, that's people on the tablet and on the phone, and that looks really funny, is that real esports? I go like, well, you got to imagine, like, there's still, you know, tens of millions of people find it really awkward to see people playing in a big stadium with a PC. So, you know, it's easy to get stuck into certain perceptions and thinking what you are. And I guess those traditional brands and those esports brands that keep thinking about the future and keep innovating or re-innovating, I think that's where you will see more traditional sports and esports coming together, whether it be through virtual reality, augmented reality, or anywhere else.
Thank you. Hendrik, I see you nodding over there. Do you want to share some experiences
Yeah,
of traditional
actually,
sports?
Fun thing is I just signed a Clash Royale talent, and in our company we also have a lot of hardcore gamers, so PC gamers usually, and they're also like, mobile game, are you serious? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, the mobile market is huge. It's just incredible. When it comes to the exchange with football clubs, I mean, I've been dealing a lot with Schalke. So no Roma, no sunshine, sadly, in Gelsenkirchen. However, Ruhrgebiet charm. And that was very interesting because you can exchange so many experiences and so many things that, like, traditional sports clubs also had to do their developments and also did their experiences over the years. And exchanging those experiences is so valuable for us who are still doing many steps that football clubs already did in the past. On the other side, football clubs, as Walter just said, reinventing themselves, rethinking their position in the market and also where they want to go in the future. So we can bring in a lot of input, they bring in a lot of, like, many experiences, and together we can come up with way better products than just alone. So for us right now, it's a very exciting time, especially exchanging those experiences with, like, traditional sports clubs or other stakeholders in that field.
Awesome, thank you. So let's shift, because another aspect of revenue is, of course, sponsorship. Andre, we're going to start with you. Why are esports clubs having difficulty signing profitable and long-term sponsorship deals, and do you think this will change?
I don't think it's an overall problem. A lot of esports clubs might have that problem, but they're not the only ones who have that problem. So the actual problem, in my perspective, is like the game is changing. That means the digitalization is coming, and we are talking about, like, it's like this thing, like this smartphone in all of your pockets, like, nearly changed everything in your whole life during the last couple of years. And we're still talking about that this didn't happen. So this is like an example for that the advertising world is also changing, which means that a lot of advertising budgets are still, like, in the TV industry. And now they see that the actual digitalization is coming, which means there's social media, and before that there was Google advertising, and it will be VR sometime. And esports is a part of that. And we actually have the problem that we need to talk about advertising budgets between, yeah, you need to spend your money digital and not traditional. And if you convince people to spend their money digital, because this is where the attention is, in my point of view. If you pay money for a 30 seconds TV spot between Berlin Tag und Nacht und RTL 2 News, or you pay the same amount of money for Facebook ads or influencer marketing, I promise you get a lot of more out of it, of that. And the combination doing with this, with other advertising opportunities, but have this good right and good content and use it for your own company is like the big benefit. And as fast as you realize that, it will help your business even faster. So we're basically about in the discussion, so like changing advertising budgets and go into influencer marketing and valuable advertisements. So it's basically about don't steal people's time, just provide value as much as you can, tell stories and be creative. And this is like the new advertising, and the old advertising world with shitty spots that takes your time is like gone in my perspective.
The influencer marketing perspective is really interesting. Hendrik, do you have experience signing partnerships or sponsorships directly with a player from a specific team in terms of influencer marketing? And how does that differ to the same from traditional sports?
So to be honest, I never signed at least a classical sports player any contract. So I didn't gather any experiences there. We did a lot of like different campaigns with influencers, like close esports influencers, but also YouTube and other influencers like Instagram and stuff. And I think the market still feels a lot like the Wild West to a certain extent. So for example, while I think in traditional sports, player management is pretty much the standard, at least when you're reaching a certain level of professionalism, you still have many players and many people with a lot of influence and a lot of reach in the market, which have never managed themselves and which never had their own manager on their side. So when it comes to pricing, when it comes to conditions for contracts, when it comes to many other aspects in esports right now, you have no freaking clue what suddenly the player has no clue what he's talking about, and suddenly you gotta like start from the very scratch and explain him how we do this deal. So it's still a lot of building up professionalism, and it's building up like an environment in which we can work professionally together. So it's always a bit adventurous, but yeah, I think especially when it comes now to player management, this topic is now like one of the top tier in esports, I say. Like suddenly many companies are popping up doing that. So I think we're developing into the direction which is kind of similar to professional sports, like classical sports already, but it's still a lot of like groundwork building up.
So while it's still the Wild West, you see that rapidly changing.
Yeah, right now it's like probably the most exciting time in that field. Like as mentioned, we're currently talking to many different companies doing now player management. And yeah, I think we're establishing now kind of a standard when it comes to contract length, also now doing something longer like Virtus Pro did with their Counter-Strike team, but also sponsorship agreements. Right now, when I want to talk to, like, do a personal sponsorship agreement with a player, many teams never did that in eSport. They did team sponsorships, but they didn't do individual player sponsorships. When I talk, when I think about Mario Götze wearing his Nike shirt on the Bayern Munich press conference, that was hilarious, but that was a good example of, bad example of having a personal sponsor and a team sponsor coexisting, as I mentioned, not like perfectly, but it works.
Thank you. So Walter, Fnatic has one of the strongest and most established brands in esports. How much do you weigh picking your partners and sponsors versus maintaining a truly authentic brand?
Well, I guess there's definitely the ambition that we as a brand, we work hard on our image and the particular things that we like ourselves, and so I guess it's too early to say, like, you know, we can be really picky about it or so, and I think, of course, lots of respect and good things that we do with the partners that we have, but I guess if you look at it, we would prefer to maybe work with less than more, for example, because we see ourselves as well as maybe some part, not just an advertising platform, as you said. It's a lot about the activations, it's a lot about the excitement, it's the brand associations, and so to a large extent we see ourselves also as a creative agency for those partners. And then it's always great if you can work with brands and products that you feel really close to from a brand perspective. You think it's really meaningful to the audience, and so So I think for the partners that we work with right now, that makes a lot of sense. And going forward, no doubt we'll further work on to building very strong and long-lasting relationship with brands, which we already have had. And in fact, at times we do have examples where we ended a partnership with a sponsor, and it took people 1 or 2 years to realize that actually that had stopped. So and so there you see examples that building long-lasting partnerships, also in esports, obviously, they make a lot of sense. As for ourselves, I think esports is very much still a growing industry, so trying to figure out what the world looks like in 3 years from now, that is not what we're doing. So I think it's also rather us that we sometimes say, like, look, let's do this for a year and then we'll see again. So I think it's both ways, where everyone still wants to explore and build up. And once you've established a very good foundation, and let's say the feeling is good and the results are good, then you're in a position to build up on a longer term or multi-year partnership.
Great, thank you. So I'd like to close out the panel discussion with a question for each of you that will hopefully prompt some audience questions afterwards. So Hendrik, can you start? I want to hear what you think the biggest challenge facing the industry is today, and then also what you're most excited about.
So for me, the biggest challenge is like one of the major differences between esports and classical sports, and that's when it comes to the over-powerful publisher's position within esports. Like, I think as long as like there is a publisher who's capable of changing the game entirely from today to tomorrow because it's his IP and his game, that's like a huge difference also for investors, and that's also a huge difference for those two different like industries. While football is owned by everyone and no one at the same time. So for me, that's still something where I think that's like one of the bottlenecks, where I want to see a solution or something like kind of some rules for that, like for that construct for the future. So when I, as an investor, want to invest in something like League of Legends, Counter-Strike, whatsoever, I have I'm insured by the publisher that this investment cannot just won't disappear because the game will change or the league structure will change just from top to bottom. I'm most excited right now about, for some reason, when I'm talking at a panel like this or something like that before, it was all about pushing numbers. You know, I'm telling everyone like new zoo numbers here and there, and esports is growing. You can't believe it. It's insane. Like X%. But right now it feels like we are not in the need of doing that anymore. For me, like for the first time in those past 5 years, it feels like it's like really pushing itself, the topic itself, so much into the public eye with so many developments with football clubs and like our own clubs like Fnatic and other brands that right now people are coming to us more than ever and want to be part of it, like big brands, and public attention is huge. So it's overall something where I don't need to push numbers anymore. It's like actually exciting to see how this all, like the public perception is changing by itself. So that is amazing for me right now in my job.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The education piece is getting less and less. So Andre, same questions. Biggest challenge and what you're most excited about right now?
It goes on with the answer that Henrik did. I guess it's like patience, because the esports industry itself is like going in the totally right direction, and of course there will be some failures, and of course there will be a lot of successes. But I mean, it's the right direction we're going, and we just need to figure out which is the right way. And I guess especially in an industry where it's like very fast, very, very fast, especially compared to traditional sports. It's like, we say like 1 year in traditional sports is like only 1 month in esports. Then it could like change everything. So you need to have your ear on the ground, and you need to be like a practitioner, and you also need to have like the long-term vision. And if you have that, and if you're willing to like do your shit, then it will grow. And with that in mind, I guess we all have an exciting time in front of us. And which I'm really excited about is maybe in a couple of years, I do believe it's more than 5 years. Others think it's less than 5 years. It's virtual reality that will change the game itself enormously. But still like a very long way to go. And I guess we need to figure out what's now and work our way up there. And then if VR comes and it's on the point that it switches, we already have that practicability and the experience to use that, what we learned now in the next couple of years, to transfer it into the VR world. And yeah, it's a very exciting time to live in. Just imagine, like my last sentence, that like 20 years ago, like our parents or grandparents, so they didn't have that opportunities that we have. So there are so much opportunities. So to get it rolling, it's like, I guess, hard work and patience.
Thanks. Same question, Walter.
Yeah, difficult one, of course. But I mean, first of all, I was thinking like it's difficult to speak for the whole of esports because it's such a big universe already. So a bit closer. And for ourselves, I think the biggest challenge is actually, it's not really challenges, is indeed those many opportunities that are out there. We do a lot of things, as I said. It's products, it's the teams, it's the events. We do parties. If you're going to Katowice, we're going to do a party, but you haven't heard it from me, but you will know later. And people in our business are obviously very passionate about what they're doing. So I would say sometimes it's even a challenge is to temper the passion a bit, stay focused on what we really want to do and what is it actually what we really want to do. And we do a lot of things ourselves, as I said. So I think for us the challenge is to really figure out, what we're best at and keep on doing that and make sure that, we keep bringing that excitement for the next 10 years to come. And so and we'll see what that will be.
Thank you, guys. So let's go ahead and open it up to the audience. Any questions from you guys?
Hello, Robert from Bridal of Glory. Thank you very much, first of all, for your sharing the experience with us. I want to pick up the first topic in the beginning of this discussion about the revenue per fan, because in traditional sports, everybody grew up, the father or the brother, this team is the best team, and you grew up and you looked your whole life to this team, so you're a fan the whole life. And in esports, is you start a game and you start to like the game and then you start to watch the game. And what do you think, will the esports fans reach age where they say, okay, now I'm too old for games and I'm losing everything with esports? Or is this a development where you say, yeah, now I have a daughter, I raise her as a esports fan, and she will be my whole life esports fan, and this will develop like this. So is this maybe the problem also for the lower revenue, because we have clubs, football clubs, they're 100 years old. So this is my question.
I guess both will happen. So that means that more and more people who grew up with it will keep doing this, will keep playing, I guess. Some of them won't. And on the other hand, you have the opportunity that actually people who didn't grow up with it or who might grow out of it, that are older, still want to understand their kids better. So there's actually the opportunity that they come back into that sports because they want to have like the connection between the younger generation, and they want to get that feeling of that what's happening now back. So I guess both will happen. I don't know which one will go stronger.
Yeah, somewhat, actually slightly different idea about it. Like, here's where I sometimes make the reference to, music. Like esports, there's so many different titles. They're all different in what they look like and how they work. And I guess it's more like, when you're young, you listen to the Gangnam Style and, the kids party stuff. And then, I don't know how it exactly goes, but then you go to One Direction, and then maybe, you get to other bands until when you're older, like, you still like some of that stuff. Maybe not when you're really young, but you start to continue developing your taste. And I think it's somewhat similar with esports. Like, you grow up with a certain game, and I guess you keep the love for that, but new things come up. And, suddenly that's what you like better. And I think that's where people will just continue to develop their taste for different styles or games and so.
My feeling is, to a certain extent, that in esports, we are still working on developing like brands like we have in with traditional sports. When I see something like Bayern Munich, that's a hugely successful club with long-time continuity when it comes to building up the club itself. And I think those two components, continuity and success in sports, are two components which are super relevant in order to build also this, as you mentioned, like I'm a fan for like my whole life and I can identify with it. I think a brand like Fnatic did really well that you can identify with the brand itself, that even if the whole roster changed, like back in League of Legends, for me that was a huge topic when Pekka and stuff, like when they left and suddenly they got like a no-name guy like Huni, and suddenly that guy, because he joined Fnatic, also got in like part of this character. And through those developments, like building a brand like Fnatic or other like esports clubs or esports brands, you can like stick to esports, I think, no matter how old you get, because even changing esports titles, even changing players won't matter that much anymore, because you can identify with values in the brand itself.
Walter, I'm going to ask the question that I think is on everyone's mind now. Are you yourself a One Direction fan?
No.
Seemed like an odd choice. Okay. Go ahead.
Maybe to Fnatic, what would you say are your main challenges in identifying new talent for that could be potentially interesting for you, and how do you go about to like find them and then make sure they could potentially fit into your team?
Yeah. Well, finding is still not done through the players. It's on the servers, and so there's obviously a lot of data available around players and their performance. I think the challenge is then you don't know who's behind it. Of course, some of them they already know personally, or it's out of the pro circuit or so, but let's say if it's a new talent, then it's down to how does a person fit into a team, and how does he perform, in game and out of the game, on stage, and being a personality and being judged upon on social media. So I think that's where the real challenge lies. If you've identified talent, is like how do you guide them and make them grow up in a professional team and in a professional environment. And that's, of course, why we also invest in the sports psychologists and the coaches and the analysts, who, by the way, also need training, because for them, some of them, it's new as well. So I think that's where the difference lies, and that's where one person or 5 individuals in a team, what it usually is, need to become one, and that's not always easy.
I think we had a question in the back.
Okay.
That was close.
Oh, God. Hi, my name is Gina, and I would like to offer up an opinion. So wouldn't you say that, for example, influencer marketing and the marketing of an esports team is quite different? Because I feel like that influencers are themselves a brand. They know how to present themselves, and their whole business, what's it called, is about themselves and about presenting themselves as a brand. On the other side, I feel like esports teams are very, because I have some experience working with some esports
So
teams.
it's more about sports.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just doing that for a living.
Yeah, exactly. So would you say that maybe the reason why some esports teams have difficulties securing a long-term and a profitable work relationship with a brand is that maybe, do you see a relation there in the marketing of esports teams?
I guess it's a good point. It's the point that Wouter mentioned when like choosing for players, that they have to be like a brand and an identity, and they have to be aware about themselves. So you just can't make every player to an influencer. It's the same in traditional sport. You just can't use every football player and put it in front of a camera, as you probably all know. Some of them still trying, but it didn't work that well by some people. So you have to choose your players, and you can't like choose everyone. Therefore, I guess a lot of teams choose like between good performers and like good marketing guys, because it's like it will grow up. But you can't force someone to do like that, behave like that. But still, I believe that if you help players to be like self-aware, then they will make their way with it. So if you're like a shy person, then be a shy person. That's fine. And if you're like a loud person, then be that. And you can still use that as an influencer, but of course there are like different ranges. But I guess it's very important to know the player, to know the team, and really have brands that fits together. So it might be that it's not the best brand for the players. That might is your problem.
Maybe a tiny follow-up on that.
Yeah.
Can you maybe explain why you chose to invest in an esports team rather than in an influencer, for example, for your first venture into esports?
It comes from our history, actually, because we in Germany, and especially in Germany and in Europe, we are very experienced with football clubs, as I mentioned. These are teams. And our colleagues in the US, for instance, they are very experienced with players. So we might start an influencer business there because we have more like that one person business model. But here we believe that we want to transfer our knowledge that we have. Like this is the best fit. So this we actually know, and we might work our way up into influencers. But still there, it might be risky, because if you have like 15 influencers under contract and like one of you guys is repping them, and if he's leaving, then our business is leaving. So this is still like a little bit risky.
Great, thank you. Let's move up here.
Thanks. Hi, David with FanMiles. So there was a study that came out in the middle of last year that pointed out that in esports, about 77%, thereabouts, of the revenue being reported in these Newzoo type reports were coming from indirect revenue streams, so advertisement and sponsorship. Given the fact that there are only so many endemic sponsors or potential advertisers in this space, where do you all see the greatest growth opportunity from non-endemic sponsors emerging in the next 12, 24 months? Do you think it's the leagues, the players, the influencers, the platforms, or maybe even the studios themselves?
I guess it's a combination of all of them, because it's still like, it's about attention, right? So you need to be there where the attention of the consumers, where the attention of the fan is, and you need to find your stories. So if your story is like, for instance, you're like a travel company, and this travel company is actually providing good travel equipment, or they go on good planes, or it could be a hotel, then you might do content from, you start with your travel from the team house, and then you go to the actual event. Then you have like a good story, but then the story doesn't end, so you need the event partnership there as well. And then you might do a behind-the-scenes story with some guys who's moderating the event. Then you need like an influencer to push it as well. So it really depends on your individual needs from the brand, and from there on you take the actual pieces you need and put the perfect package together.
Even though I'm in charge of influencer management in our company, and I think influencer management is great, you know, it's fun and stuff, I still think for me, one of the top major topics is content licensing right now. So when I heard about the Riot deal with their platform, I thought that's like one of the biggest steps we had in recent history when it comes to esports. And I think right now we are building up the quality of our content and the value of our content with all those influencers, with all this growth and the attention right now, that right now, in the next months and years, I think networks and I don't know who will fight for the right to broadcast this content and own this content and be in charge of it. And I think owning this content and owning those licenses on the long term, that's a battle which will now go on, and I think that's one of the biggest revenue drivers in the future, as it is already in classical sports.
I think leagues will make a big difference, because if you look at it, that there are obviously esports teams in different sizes and forms, and right now people are, let's say the non-endemics, and you know a lot about that, they're still trying to understand the space. You know, similar way when, again, talking about music, is say like if people go like, okay, I want to sponsor or be active in esports, say like, okay, I want to sponsor music. Yeah, where do you start? So I think leagues are a very digestible way, and actually a very good way to kind of like, call it group assets, to give everyone a share in that, and create something exciting. And then you come indeed to content licensing and media broadcast. So personally, I think leagues are a very good development in a way to, grow up more together rather than individuals and all individually looking after sponsorships and content licensing, etc.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question? Okay, quick follow-up question related to that, and specifically with Lagardère and with Fnatic and your recent, I guess, investment or partnership with AS Roma. But are you all looking at blending, and you as well, traditional sports and making those partnerships happen partially so that you can tap into some of these shared sponsorship relationships, deals, opportunities? Or is that not really a primary motivator for being involved with the traditional teams?
I mean, I think the first question is like, you guys know that better, but the question is like those brands that are currently sponsoring in football, one, is it exactly the same audience? Two, does that relate to esports and what esports is and the games? I think in quite a few cases it's probably not. But I guess there might definitely be overlapping brands and so that where we can tap into that. But I can't exactly express it in maybe 50% makes sense or not, and that's why you maybe know more about how you see that.
Yeah, you can't just tell that it's general like that or like that. It's still like individual. It still depends on the brand and it depends on the target group. And you might want to attract like fans, sports fans in total, or you might want to attract younger sports fans. It still could work with a football club, but it could be also a combination of that. And still there, talking about digital again, it could be an opportunity to test like new different sponsorship opportunities and then take this esports opportunity, esports sponsorships back to the traditional sports, because it's much more flexible and much more faster. And you might learn something from the esports sport industry and then put it back to your traditional sport. So it will complement and benefit from each other in the long term as well. And then you tell like really good stories if you connect the dots.
Great. And I think we have time for one more question. And there was a gentleman in the third row who had his hand up. Maybe? No?
Going to the idea of media coverage, at the moment, like for example, this event is brought to us by an actual dedicated esports publication, and there are a few out there. When you're kind of getting media coverage for the games, you could either go to these organizations who understand the sport and will report it like any traditional sport publication would talk about their sport, or you can go to the larger mainstream publications who might promote it with a bit of novelty, but they ultimately reach a higher readership. In terms of going forward, which would you guys prefer to go to, building more reputation with dedicated esports publications, or moving towards getting more coverage in big mainstream publications?
Good question. What kind of business are you talking about?
Sorry? Like newspapers, online publications, in terms of getting just the actual coverage of the games, of team changes, of all that stuff.
Okay, so it depends what you really want. Do you want just the reach? So then you can like buy these packages that only has reach. But I guess if you aiming a little bit more for like engagement, then it doesn't make any difference, I guess, because you will have it in sports anyway. So if you want to like buy reach, that makes sense to go on LED TV panels, I guess, which still like there it's a combination, I guess. So there you have like the traditional sport and you get the reach there with good prices. You have LED panels on the pitch from football, for instance, and it's not that much money that you pay, but it's still included in the actual football game. So you don't have that time-stealing advertising format. So there you get the reach from, and then back to engagement, you go digital. So it really depends on the brand, I would say.
So just to understand you right, I thought that you're like talking about the cover, like either like esports specific coverage from smaller like coverage page, or something like the mainstream media with less knowledge and less depth but they have got a higher reach for the coverage.
So I think what I was kind of going for was, would the way going forward be to encourage more major publications to start creating dedicated esports spaces where they will start covering the games rather than relying on the smaller ones, or do we want to actually raise the smaller ones?
I think we don't need to rule anything of those out. I think, for example, ESPN is doing a great job with their coverage. I mean, I'm personally quite a fan of Jacob Wolf's job, and he's doing some great articles, and he's also a great guy. But also, I think Yahoo, their current esports coverage is also pretty impressive. So they're investing, and I think while on the other side we've got guys like those ones, and also our coverages that gain more and more like budgets and also more reach since the topic is growing. So right now it doesn't feel like we need to necessarily rule each other out. At one point we might, but I think right now we are pretty fine coexisting.
And I'd like to speak to this since I do comms for Bitcraft, including the portfolio companies like Dojo Madness or Runtime. And we do about a split. It depends, of course, on the release. But I would say it's usually about 60% mainstream media, 40% esports coverage. It totally depends on the target market. But just as Hendrik mentioned, yeah, Yahoo's getting in the game. But even with the tech coverage, you know, Mashable has a dedicated esports journalist now. TechCrunch has been publishing guest posts about esports as well. So I think as esports continues to be more mainstream, we'll see it more and more in traditional publications, including the New York Times and Bloomberg. And just what I've noticed in the last year is there's a lot less of an educational component than there was when I was first pitching a year ago. Most of the journalists, even if they've never covered esports before, know what esports actually is.
I guess we still like the media, you know, like young, small, big, you know. But I agree, like it's. I think it's great to see pick up in mainstream media. I guess we always still feel that. Another point of like growth and recognition. Personally, I feel like new media outlets, they don't know all the history, what was behind it, and so sometimes I feel it's more superficial or not always, you know, doesn't capture the whole thing. But I think that's just something we have to live with, and then definitely appreciate more in-depth stories, but not everyone wants to read those. And I think for us is to try, you know, to, let's say, serve, if you want to call it like that, the outlets and audiences alike, no matter whether, you know, they want to read small pieces or larger pieces or video content or written content, etc. Yeah.
Great, and ooh, it is 8 o'clock. We have kept our promise. Walter, Andre, Hendrik, thank you so much for being here. Are you guys able to stick around for a beer in case there's other questions?
Of course. Totally. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. And thanks so much, Chris. And once again, special thanks to Lagardère for the drinks. Please grab a beer, grab some snacks, and we'll be here for networking.
I assume.